Welcome to ArtyFieldTrips. Today we have this watercolor palette called Decadent Pies by Art Philosophy. I love these little palettes, they're so portable and easy to use. We're going to swatch this and open it up, and then we're going to get into a watercolor technique called negative painting. That not only is it fun and useful for your art, but is also oddly satisfying. So ASMR, y'all! Alright. In this palette, you'll see that there's lots of different wrapped up thingies. We're just going to unwrap them real fast. There we go. Now we're going to start swatching. I always activate my palettes with a little spray bottle. Wait. There's something really wrong here. Wait, what is it? Oh, much better. As we continue to swatch, you can see that these colors are super creamy, like pies, which makes sense. But we're not going to be painting pies. We're going to be painting leaves because with the project at the end of the video, we're going to need a simple shape, and leaves are really good for that. So some of these are really hard to activate, and what I would suggest to do is leave that water that you sprayed on there a little bit longer, and that way that pigment will release and you can see it on your paper. The ones that are harder to activate are the metallic and shimmery ones. And you're going to see there's lots of nice earth tones here, and that's going to make really good leaves. So now we're going to tape off a square in our sketchbook, and I have a watercolor sketchbook here that I'm going to be using. And as you can see, I tape off my square crooked. Aww. But anyway, we're going to move on from that. I start by laying down a background of a really light color. And since we're using leaves, I'm using sort of a green. I'm going to put a little bit of brown in there to warm it up. But we want to keep this base layer really light, because then we're going to draw our basic leaf shapes on top of it, and that's going to be the leaves that are on the very top of the pile, because what we're going to do is we're going to paint lots of different layers here, and each layer is going to create depth as we move along. So we want these leaves on the top to be really light, and then at the end we can go in and add detail and shadows. As we get into the second layer, we're going to slightly darken our background layer, and we're going to paint another layer on top of that background. And once we complete that next layer of that slightly darker color, we're going to go in and add a few more leaf shapes. And you've got to be careful not to add too many shapes in the beginning layers, or else you'll run out of room for the deeper layers. Here I'm going in with yet another layer, slightly darker than the last. Painting around the freshly drawn leaf shapes. You could do this with so many other fun things. Like at the time of this recording, it's Easter time, and I think like marshmallow peeps or some kind of fun Easter candy would be super cool and colorful, kind of a step up from the basic leaf shape. At Christmas, this would be a really cool thing to do at Christmas time with Christmas ornaments. Here I'm darkening the background one more time, and I'm going to be adding more leaf shapes. I'm gonna repeat myself a lot because you just repeat the same thing over and over again, but the results are so cool in the end. Adding some more leaf shapes again. And you'll start to see the more crowded it is, the more challenging it is to get those good shapes in there. but you can fit them in. And this layering process takes some time, but that's really good. Like if you're just trying to paint to help with stress relief, I know when I've had a really long day at work, sometimes just something that I can just zen into is so therapeutic. So now I'm going in with a much darker color to try to really define those leaf shapes now. As you get towards the end of the layers that you want to make, you start to think about shadows and details, especially with those lower layers, so that you can really make those leaves stand out. I can see lots of uses for this technique. You could make large prints for your living room. Like you could do a couple different colorways and be kind of like Andy Warhol leaves or whatever shape you want to make. Or you could use some kind of food object like pasta noodles or cereal or something like that and make paintings for your kitchen. These would make great greeting cards if you layered things like candy or Christmas ornaments. They could be birthday or Christmas cards. There's lots of ideas to use this with. See, at this point, it is getting very challenging to fit those shapes in there. So I'm just putting little tips of the leaves in there, just indicating that there's another layer of leaf in the pile. And now we're going to get much darker as we go in there. This is also a great technique for acrylic painting as well. And you start to see that depth really start to pop with this darker color. The darker the background gets, the more the depth comes alive. Now I'm just going to add one more little layer. As you can see, I'm using a darker paint color because I don't want that shiny pencil to like get on top of the dark and be like weirdly shiny like sometimes pencil does. And as I go in and add these just very last shapes, you can tell now I'm really just indicating a leaf. I'm not trying to fit a whole leaf in there. You're just indicating that there's some shapes down there in the shadows. It's really cool to watch it come alive. It's almost like you could push through those leaves and see the Queen of Hearts in like Alice in Wonderland or something like that. So at this point, I'm done with all my layers, and now I'm gonna start to flesh out some detail and shadows on the leaves to just give them that extra little pop of depth. And you could do this however you want to. You could make them fantastical and add different kinds of colors, or maybe like little dots of gold or something like that. I always love whimsical, colorful touches that people wouldn't necessarily expect. And remember, even with the details, we're going to keep the top layer with light colors, and as you paint the details, you're going to use darker and darker colors going down the layers of leaves. Here I'm adding some shadow just to add a little bit of form to them, to make them look like they might be a little bit curved. They're not just flat like paper. So here I'm actually trying to add a little bit of a pop of color to make these actually look like fall leaves. So I wanted to have some orange and some yellow. I still wanted to keep it muted because I didn't want to I wanted to keep cohesion in my color palette. And as you can see, the darker colors to make the details further down in the painting. And we're done with the details. And now I'm going to add a little bit of a pop of highlight with some white acrylic paint. This particular acrylic paint is Arteza. I tend to use it in my sketchbook so that I don't have to use my expensive paint, except for things that are going to be finished products. And Arteza is really good for that. I wouldn't suggest it for a finished painting that you were going to sell or give away, but it's really good to kind of work out what your plan is with more expensive paint. And of course, the satisfying tape removal. Well, thank you so much for coming and visiting me on Arty Field Trips. If you like what you saw here, like and subscribe.